Hey there, folks. It's the E-Man here, and I guess I wanted to talk about the Castlevania Netflix series is getting ready to set up for season 4 on May May 13th. I can say that I am incredibly excited about this because I'm a real fan of Castlevania, and there's been a lot of interesting Castlevania stuff I've been hearing about. Like recently, I discovered that the Dreamcast tech demo of the Castlevania Resurrection that was an unreleased game for the Dreamcast. I'm hoping somebody eventually finds a way to finish that game. There's a lot of controversy with the character in it, Sonia Belmont, which was supposed to be originally the very first Belmont, before they did the whole thing in Leon or whatever. And as you know, in this Netflix series, there was, they discover the secret Belmont vault, and there's a big giant picture of Leon Belmont right there. So yeah, this series borrows a lot from those 3D games. Of course, Sonia Belmont has forever been kind of removed from canon. A lot of people don't like. I don't know if it's spoilers or whatever, but in the original story, there was a Game Boy game of her, and supposedly she falls in love with Alucard, and then her and Alucard have a son, which is supposed to be Trevor, which rubs people the wrong way. But her character probably deserves to just someone to help finish this game so we can see her. A unique thing about season 4 is, or something I'm thinking of, it's probably going to finally explain the whole. Maybe it's going to start up showing us Dracula resurrecting constantly, and Trevor has to set up the whole setup so that his descendants can fight Dracula and keep him from resurrecting. It's a joke within the show. It's like, why do we spend the rest of our lives trying to keep Dracula being resurrected? It's like, well, that's the premise of all the games, is Dracula keeps coming back and Belmont has to defeat him. I believe the next Belmont after Trevor would probably be Simon, I believe. It would be really cool if, we go into the past and everything. Now, the main character, apart from Dracula, that would be in the continuations of it is Alucard. Alucard's presence in Castlevania is that he's always trying to defeat his father, and he sleeps for many, especially he sleeps and he doesn't wake up until Richter Belmont is. Yeah, so I mean, he misses Simon and everything goes on when Alucard's asleep. And of course in this, we see him in his full sympathy of the night. At least it appears that he's fighting by himself. He's got the shield and the sword that he has in Sympathy of the Night, and he's kicking butt, taking names. I'm sure it's going to set up a lot of things. So I mean, there's rumors that they're going to continue this on, but they could do another Castlevania, but a different Belmont, perhaps Simon. Or maybe they might skip and just go right to Richter Belmont. Yeah, so Alucard is always around there, since he's immortal, he can't die. So he's technically a character that's been in, he's a character that's referenced continuously. Trevor is just, Trevor's kind of a footnote, and Alucard is kind of, forever. Well, in Castlevania Bloodlines, he got the Alucard spear to Eric Licardo in Bloodlines. That was a weapon he made for him. And, I think since Alucard is part vampire, he can smell people's blood. So perhaps he knows who is in the bloodline of the Belmonts. Because there's a lot of Belmonts that aren't officially Belmonts, but they're like the cousins of Belmonts. Because supposedly I've heard that rumors that, that supposedly after Sympathy of the Night, Richter Belmont went, and had he made sure to have multiple children with multiple different women. I don't know if you, but that was just so he would make sure that there would always be a descendant. So the Morris clan and the Licardi clan are supposedly cousins of Castlevania. It's always been an interesting thing how they link, each one together. The premise of some of the games is every 100 years Dracula comes back. So maybe this is going to set that up and fully explain the whole thing. We do have little instances of, I've seen a statue of like the Grim Reaper. I don't know if we're going to see the Grim Reaper or Death show up. I really hope so. Maybe that's how we're going to set the whole thing up and say, oh yeah, he's back because he's one of the, because remember from the video games, if you've played the games, it's always Death and somebody else working to try to resurrect Dracula. It is funny that they make a kind of a joke to that thing. Yeah, but yeah. I mean, this series is kind of different, but it does borrow a lot from that. And of course, Hector and Isaac. Isaac is, of course, completely different than he is in the video game Curse of Darkness. Hector looks the same, but a lot of things about him are different. He's in love with I don't know if he's in love, but he's like involved with the vampire girl. I've seen Hector get his butt whooped quite a bit, so yeah, it's like kind of mean to him. And now they've figured out a way to make, so he can make the new monsters they need to defend themselves. Of course, we got Carmilla and her other female vampires are planning to kind of like take over the world or something. Yeah, and it appears that Trevor and Sophia, or Sypha, I guess is her name. Yeah, they appear to be doing their own thing while Alucard is kind of doing his thing. Maybe Alucard is setting up for how he's going to be. Like he's going to be the ultimate guardian, trying to help humanity wherever he can. I mean, not either directly or indirectly, he's trying to help the lineage. There's a lot of fan-made games. I think there's a Castlevania, the Licardi Chronicles, which I think that's kind of what it is. But yeah, you get to play as Eric Licardi's, you get to play as his, it's either his father or, it's either his father or he's some kind of ancestor of the Eric Licardi from Bloodlines. He's a messenger of the church. He goes to figure stuff out. It's cool because he meets Alucard, and then it kind of explains how he got the spear, because Alucard gives him the spear before going to sleep. So Alucard has a sense, I want to go to sleep for like hundreds of years. Well, maybe not originally. A lot of times it's like, he doesn't want to prey upon humans for food, so maybe that's what part of it was. And then, partly he goes to sleep for 300 years, and simply the night happens, and then Alucard gets woken up. So basically Alucard was planning to just be asleep for all eternity or something. They never fully say like where exactly he went to sleep. But remember, Trevor and Sophie found him and woke him up. So yeah, so I guess Alucard, being half human, half vampire, of course he's immortal. He will never die of old age. So it's kind of sad, though, because then he has to deal with all of that. And I guess it's showing Alucard finally maturing and kind of accepting, because season 3, he was a mess. There was those two people he tried to trust, and then they tried to kill him, and then he had to kill them, and it was just terrible. And then he had the talking dolls, and he was losing his mind. He had cabin fever or whatever. And then he's kind of like, I'm going to set this up so nobody's going to mess with me. Yeah, I think it's kind of cool. And then Trevor's whining about how he has to keep, we have to keep killing people to keep Dracula from resurrecting. It's like, that's part of your job, buddy. Yeah, it's interesting how we've seen these characters kind of grow and change. Like Alucard has become more self-confident and more powerful, and Trevor is kind of, he's having to see the full extent of his destiny. He's become from a drunken buffoon that had no money and being a buffoon to being who he needs to be to save the world. Sypha has not changed. I don't think her character has changed much. I think she's got more confidence in her powers and abilities. Yeah, it definitely seems like Alucard's starting to figure out his role, and then Trevor's figuring out his role as heir to the Belmont clan because he's like one of the last ones, I guess, in this particular time. So hopefully we're going to be seeing Simon or whatever. Death, if it's done really well, but if he just appears and they don't fully explain anything, I think that Trevor and Sophie find out that the Grim Reaper was behind this cult group that was trying to resurrect him. I think they're going to run into him. Maybe they accidentally wake him up, and then it's like, oh crap! Now Dracula is going to keep resurrecting because of death. I've heard rumors that supposedly Isaac was going to like get killed and turn into death. I mean, maybe, but I don't know because remember he had his creatures that were just tearing people to bits. Yeah, this series is definitely not for little kids. So kind of keep that in mind too if you're trying to look at this. But it is so cool to think that season 4 isn't too long from now. I thought season 3 was going to be the last season, but it'll be the last season of these people. These characters. Like I don't know if they're going to try to go to Simon, or are they just going to skip to Richter Belmont? Just kind of skip to Sympathy of the Night. Well, I guess they can do whatever they want to because this is a little bit different than Castlevania. It doesn't have to follow any particular thing. Yes, I've watched all the episodes. It's really a great show. Yes, and there's been a lot of Netflix shows, of course, that have been canceled. Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, which I wasn't too happy about. Hopefully that will be finished with a comic book or something, because I guess they don't want to animate the Dark Crystal, and that is kind of a problem. But, there was always this rumor that there was a Castlevania movie, but I guess there was a writer's strike, multiple things happened, and probably it was just as well there wasn't a Castlevania movie. It would be cool if they would make a Castlevania movie. I would really like there to be one. I mean, they could even do an animated movie. With the Resident Evil games where they make those computers. Why don't they just do that? Like, make a whole movie of one Belmont and one era. That would be cool rather than just kind of giving us all these seasons and whatnot. I know Netflix has to make money and you're not going to want to watch it. Once these shows are done, it's like, well, what am I going to watch? It was kind of cool previous seasons that came out in like October, but Stray just as well. And I have heard rumors that Konami and Sony contemplating doing a Castlevania game on the PlayStation 5. I don't know if that's true or whatever. And of course, it would really stink if a game came out soon, Oh, and I have heard the Castlevania collection from Konami is now have a physical release, multiple box arts, posters. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. I think it's up to like almost $180 to get the whole thing, all the boxes and whatnot. I mean, yeah. I like Castlevania. A lot of the games maybe aren't as approachable as many because, this series started on 8-bit. 8-bit, it went to 16-bit. A lot of entries in the 16-bit era. And then 32-bit with Sympathy of the Night. And then a lot of the ones were on portable systems for whatever reason. And they all followed Sympathy of the Night's Metroidvania kind of style, not like the older school ones. A lot of Castlevania games, I feel, have always been hit and miss. It was cool to hear that the Castlevania Resurrection tech demo, somebody bought it, and then they were nice enough to make a ROM version and dumped it. So now you can go and burn, if you know how to burn Dreamcast games, you can go and burn some Dreamcast game. Get the ROM, and then you can burn it, and then you can play. It's like a tech demo. Like it's kind of unfinished. It stinks. I wish it would be finished, but of course, as I told you, the Sonia Belmont character was kind of like thrown out of canon. There's a lot of weird things they've done with Castlevania. Well, in Bloodlines, there was a link to, of course, Bram Stoker's Dracula, which was okay, but it's kind of lame and it doesn't really fit it. But they never really ever go back to that. Of course, Portrait of Ruin is technically a sequel on the DS. Is technically a sequel to Bloodlines. You know, they're continuing on storyline. Yeah, I mean, it's just I'd love to see a Castlevania game. I mean, even if it's a 3D one, I wish if it was a 3D one that really tried to capture what makes Castlevania great, you know, and just make up some kind of a Belmont or some other character, because I don't know. I remember playing the very last one. The technically very last one was, I believe, Castlevania Order of Ecclesia, and that was a really cool game. I just wish that there had been different versions of it. Yeah, a lot of those have not been released in collections. We get collections where it doesn't feel like they really did much to improve it. There are some collections of Symphony of the Night and Rondo of Blood, but the Symphony of the Night version on that has been, the voice acting's been changed. It's like the PSP version. Recently, there's been a fan translation of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. The Japanese version on the Saturn has been, well, it's been somewhat translated. It's not like perfect translation, but it's a lot better than it was. And the Japanese version has some extra parts in the castle, a few extra items. It makes it feel like a whole other game. Not only that, the game feels a little bit harder, I've noticed. Like, I had a hard time getting, when it's the inverted castle, trying to get through it, because it seemed like it was a little bit tougher. And then I figured out, oh, I did the bosses in the wrong order, because you want to get the parts of Dracula that enhance your abilities. Well, anyway, here's hoping that be successful. I would definitely be on the edge of my seat to watch it, because everything was building on season 3, and it was like everything's building to this. And season 3 hinted at, of course, Dracula coming back, and there has to be someone to stop him. So, yes. So, yeah, because I think Trevor, well, originally Trevor was the first one before they ever did Leon or other characters. I think, the Sonia Belmont is kind of like, was something that was just thrown out there, and maybe they didn't think about it too well. I mean, they could change it, make her be some secret Belmont we never heard of, and fix the whole thing, and have her and Alucard not have a child or something. Because that would be weird, because then Trevor would technically be, then Trevor would be that. But they do hint that Leon was the first one, and then Trevor's family had some run-ins with fighting monsters, but not fighting Dracula. Yeah, I mean, when I saw Bloody Tears and the music, I thought that was cool. I don't know, like a lot of people say there should be more music like that in it. It's like, this is trying to be a spiritual successor to the video game series. Like, it's trying to be its own thing, and I like that. I don't want it to be playing. It's nice when there's certain scenes that play the music, but they don't need to play the Castlevania music, because this is trying to be an animated feature, more like a graphic novel or a comic book or something. There's certain things you got to do differently, because we know a lot of video game adaptations do not do well, really, at all. And I mean, I'm glad that this was an animated series, but it would be cool if there was a Castlevania movie. I heard rumors that Jonathan Frakes was going to be in a Castlevania movie, but the movie never appeared. Maybe somewhere, and then we heard weird things about it, and it would have been really dumb. Yeah, I mean, it's not Castlevania unless there's a Belmont or what. The Castlevania games are hit and miss. I don't really like really a lot of the 3D ones. Curse of Darkness kind of tries to take place before the events of Castlevania 3. And of course, there's Leon has his whole game and kind of the origins of the Belmonts. Perhaps it seems weird when they always try to do an origins thing of the Belmonts. They always seem to like not mess up, but there's always some kind of weird character connection that's weird. With Sonia Belmont, there's a weird connection to Alucard is just odd, and I don't particularly like that, like her and him having a child. But then it feels like when they do Leon, I mean, Leon is cool. It's cool to set him up and everything. But then, his connection to Dracula is a little bit weird because remember, like Dracula and him were supposedly friends long before he even called himself Dracula. And I think that was a little bit iffy. So I feel like it's hard to try to do an Origins game, I think, especially when they should have done that. Should have done Sonia Belmont first thing and figured out what to do. But I feel like there were characters they were adding in, and they were thinking far ahead on how to do it, or maybe nobody really cared because I like a lot of these games, a lot of these Castlevania games. It's good that there's a digital collection, a way to preserve it, but I do hear that Konami lost a lot of the records from some tsunami in Japan. But it would be nice if they really did a lot more with their games, really trying to improve them, or certain games maybe need a remake. I mean, Rondo of Blood was okay. I mean, that was a cool remake, but it would be cool if they did something with Bloodlines. Because supposedly someone bought the demo cart for that, and there was like 2 extra levels that we never saw. Maybe somebody could do with that, or they could do a remake of Bloodlines. I love the Bloodlines game. Don't get me wrong, but it would be nice to have it's more updated graphics. It doesn't have to be 3D, and they could add certain things to it. Perhaps voice acting, because I always feel like a lot of older Castlevania games, there's storyline at the beginning, explaining everything. Then there's storyline at the end, but there never feels to be any storyline in the middle. Like, no cinema scenes or whatever. I know they didn't have much to do that, but they do try to do a cinematic kind of feel to it with Bloodlines, as they did with Castlevania 3, where it looks like we're seeing a film strip going up. So, the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to is seeing Death, but he could be in the final season. Trevor defeats him, and then he's like, well, you defeated me, but, Dracula will come back, and so will I, or we figure out some kind of link or something. The link to one of the benefactors trying to resurrect Dracula. Of course, Death would love Dracula to be back. I mean, Dracula, in this series, he's killed a lot of people. Well, he wanted to wipe out the entire human race for what they did to his wife, and that's the thing. Dracula in this series, you understand his feelings, and you understand what kind of era of humankind this was. It was kind of a dark age for a very dark age for humankind at this particular time, and and Dracula tried to put up with humans, but he can't put up with his wife being burned at the stake. Because they thought she was a witch and whatnot. I mean, and that's canon from the Castlevania series. The Sympathy of the Night talks about that, and how Alucard had to deal with, his mother being dead. Then he has to try to go fight Dracula, almost for his mother. Like, a lot of people might think Alucard's kind of a mama's boy, but I guess I give him some, I give him some space. His mother was burned at the stake as a witch. Terrible way to die, so he gets a pass, I think, for that. Yeah, and of course how the castle like teleported everywhere. That was actually kind of cool. That reminded me of a lot of other fantasy things I've watched. I remember the movie Kroll or Coral or something. Oh, Cole. Like, I'm sorry, I can't really pronounce it, but yeah, it was like an older fantasy movie. They had a crazy boomerang. They'd throw at things, and the special effects were kind of iffy, but the bad guy's castle kept moving around, so they had to get the information to know where his castle was going to be because his castle keeps disappearing and reappearing. Of course, in season 3, they destroyed that. Well, that was season 2, excuse me. Season 3 kind of went on a tangent and just kind of got things set up. And it's cool that it's like one group of characters, another group, and then another group, so we're not like stuck with like one dude. I think Alucard just kind of proves his worth in the whole series. And I guess, where Trevor and Sophie are gonna figure out how to battle Dracula, or they accept their fate as having to continue on the family line, because I think Trevor and her are supposed to get married, have kids, and then their son is supposedly would be Simon's father. No, not Simon's father. No, that would be Simon's grandfather, I assume, would be born at this time. Yeah, I trying to think about 100 years. Yeah, because they would have a child in between before Simon, of course. Yes, because sometimes there was family members of the Belmonts that never fought Dracula at all. They just fought creatures, but they all had to keep like the sense of the watchful eye that Dracula's always going to try to come back. So maybe that does get kind of old after a while. So they've kind of trying to like say that a bunch of stuff has to happen before that gets set up. You know. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm sorry it went on too long, but just really wanted to talk about Castlevania Season 4. I mean, if I didn't talk about it, you'd probably wonder why I'm not talking about it. Anyway, I'll catch you guys later. Bye.